John Croyd, Cranston, Jack Braun, Captain Flint, Brain Trust, Earl Sanderson, Silver Helix, Chop Chop, Young Troll, Stopwatch, Will-O-Wisp, Turtle, and Xavier Desmond.
Hello, welcome to Card Table. So we're up to Wildcards 10. At this moment, there are 30 books, so we got a ways to go yet. And I thought I'd take this opportunity to talk about a subject that's kind of near and dear to my heart. I get a little, nothing ignites my geek fire more than chronology and looking at the timeline of Wildcards. I've actually put together a kind of a document just kind of for my own edification of events in the Wildcards universe, that sort of in chronological order, because the books do, and they've been doing this more and more. They do kind of jump around within the timeline. Sort of, generally speaking, things sort of had start in 1946 when the wildcard virus is released, and the books move in real time. Well, they started in the 80s, so first they've kind of really quickly filled in everything that happened between 1946 and 1986, and then the books kind of moved roughly in real time. I know I've talked about that before, and so now, you know, in the Wildcards universe, it is 2023. There in that parallel universe that I like to believe really exists somewhere. But sometimes they will come back and they'll sort of jump around in the timeline. They did it with Volume 13. They go back to the 50s and tell stories set in the 50s and the 60s up through what was the present at the time when that book came out in 1993. And then they did it again with Volume 16, Deuces Down, which went back to that came out in 2002, but had stories set in the 60s, again, 60s, 80s, 90s, I think in the 70s as well, yeah, 60s through the present. And then, and now they seem to be doing it a lot, ever since the Tor relaunch. If you look at volume, just a few that just came out, there was Low Chicago, which is number 25, Low Chicago, which does some like time travel stuff. So that definitely takes you to some earlier decades, sometimes even pre-1946, before the virus was released. So the timeline is getting more larger as it extends in kind of in both directions now. So you got Low Chicago, which has stories set in different eras, and then Knaves Over Queens, which goes back to that fateful day in 1946 when the virus was released, and goes up through the present, but looks at it, whereas the original book was America-centric. This Knaves Over Queens takes you to the British Isles, with a lot of stories set in England and Ireland, and it's awesome. We'll get there eventually. And the recent one, Joker Moon, which is volume 29, so one of the most recent ones. Once again, that one starts in that one goes back to the 50s and jumps all the way, and once again moves all the way to the present. So they're constantly kind of filling in the timeline with new stuff. Like, here's some stuff that was going on back in the 50s that we didn't tell you about before. A lot of retconning of more events into the past, and really even Volume 30, which is a collection of some of the Tor.com. Originally they were exclusive to Tor.com, and now they're, I can't remember how many stories are in, it's called Full House, Volume 30. And that one has, I don't know, I don't actually have it. I'm kind of taking my time on that one because I have read all the stories already. But even that one, I think, I know those Tor.com stories, there's about 30 stories on Tor.com, and some of those are set in the 60s. And so there's lots of continuity inserts. So yeah, I've got my master document that every time a new book or story comes out, I sort of go and fill it in. And so it's very near and dear to my heart. I don't know why, what it is about that fascinates me, but it triggers some kind of obsessive compulsive need to document it all. So on that note, volumes 10 and 11, volume 10 is Double Solitaire, and volume 11 is Dealer's Choice. Those two are, because this is the other thing the Wildcards books do, and they've done it before, right? Like 4 and 5 kind of overlap, where volume 5 starts before volume 4 and kind of shows you what was happening in a different part of the world. Where Volume 4 was during a world tour, Volume 5 was back in New York City. 6 and 7 kind of do that. They both take place over the same 8-day stretch. One of them sort of showing you what was happening in New York, and the other one showing you what was happening in Atlanta during the Democratic National Convention. So 10 and 11 kind of are that. Volume 11 takes place over three days, basically, just like a weekend, and really only 2 days because it's like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and the Sunday is just kind of an epilogue. So it's just one novel to go over the events of 2 very eventful days. And of course, that's not unusual with Wildcards either, right? Like Volume 3 is, it all takes place over one single day, where it's 24 chapters, and each chapter is 1 hour of a 24-hour day. Dealer's Choice is kind of like that, only it's over 2 days instead of 1, basically. But Volume 10, Double Solitaire, it starts before 11. So it starts out pretty intuitively, 10 before 11, but then it goes over a much longer span of time. It starts in August of 1990 and goes through, well, it's not an alien planet, so kind of the dates start to become meaningless, but December of, say around December, end of 1990, whereas Dealer's Choice takes place over 2 days in September of 1990. So it's at a certain point, Double Solitaire kind of crosses over, the first part taking place before it, and then the second part taking place after Dealer's Choice. Here's something that's interesting to me, and perhaps only to me, I don't know. Tor is releasing new volumes while also slowly putting the old ones back in print. So if you were to look at a calendar or a timeline of Tor and their release schedule, you'd see it was like Volume 1, re-releasing Volume 1, while then putting out a new one, Volume 18, and then maybe Volume 19, and then re-releasing 2, and then so you have like this sort of parallel starting at 18 and going through the new books, and then slowly releasing the old ones, and then they're not even, for whatever reason, not being consistent about the old ones, because they skipped some, which I think has to do with legalities. Something was said on Facebook. They're keeping silent about it, I assume for legal reasons. There's this stretch, the Card Sharks trilogy, which is 13, 14, and 15, which were published by a different publisher from all the other books. And so there must be something going on with that publisher that's maybe making it difficult to put out those 3. So they sort of skipped. So right now everything's in print except for the Card Sharks trilogy. So now you can get everything. So they put Double Solitaire out in order, those 2 books, Volume 10, Double Solitaire first, and then I think they put out Volume 11, Dealer's Choice, after that. But when you look at the inside front cover, or the inside, how every book, this is common with like sagas and series. Anyone who's read a series or a book saga, they've got that page like, if you like this one, here's a complete list of all the books in the such and such saga. And so with the Wildcards ones, it's not just one big list. They sort of group them by arc. So they say like the original triad or whatever. One's called the Puppet Man Quartet, and one's called, and then here's the relevant one. The next one is called, I believe, the Rocks Triad, or the Rocks Trilogy, or whatever. But they list that as 8, 9, and 11. So 8, One-Eyed Jacks, Jokerton Shuffle, Dealer's Choice, and then in a different grouping they put Volume 10, Double Solitaire, kind of suggesting to a new reader that that's the order you should go in, that you should go 8, 9, and then 11, and then 10. And so I've already explained the reason why either one would work, right? Because they're not quite simultaneous, but they're definitely in the same span. And I kind of like that. I kind of like the idea of reading 11 first. I guess it would depend on how you look at it, but there's kind of a twist in Volume 11. There's just a certain plot thread that is a little bit more oblique and maybe would give the reveal just a bit more impact if you read 11 first and then went back and read 10. So I don't know. When I've done several rereads of the books at this point, because that's what fanboys do, I guess, is they read them over and over. What do they call that now? It's like mood regulation, to reread something you've already read or rewatch something that you've already watched, because you kind of know how it's going to impact you emotionally, and so you can mood regulate better than if you watch something new or read something new. I'll make that my excuse for issuing so much classic literature that I've not yet read, just so that I can read the Wildcard series for the nth time. But when I do it, I go the geekiest route possible. If the choices are read 10, then read 11, like the normal numerical order would have you would suggest, or 11, then read 10, if that's the other option, I eschew both, and I read the first part of 10, and then when it gets to the point where 11 takes place, I read 11, and then when that's done, I go back and read the rest of 10. The most rigidly chronological, which does work. Works for me. I guess dealer's choice is the apt phrase, because it is kind of reader's choice with that. I think you can get something on it. Obviously, reading in numerical order. I mean, you're never going to go wrong if you just read in numerical order, obviously. But if you're looking to shake up your Wildcards reading experience with a little remix, I would say, yeah, try doing it the other way. Just there is something, I don't know, it tweaks something in your brain, doesn't it? To just do something in the wrong way. So if you're looking to read Wildcards in the wrong order, that would be one option, would be to read 11 and then read 10, or do what I do, and I could give you I have the old Bantam or Bantam paperbacks, and somewhere I've got written down, which page number to stop reading Double Solitaire, go and read all of Dealer's Choice, and then come back and read the rest of Double Solitaire. But that page number only works for the Bantam edition. So if you're reading the Tor volumes, I'm not sure exactly where that break is. This will probably be the first of many videos regarding reading order. There's a couple other places in the saga. Well, I guess I've already skipped a couple, or I've already missed a couple opportunities to talk about this, like with volume 5 and 4 and 6 and 7. There's a little bit of simultaneity there. But coming up, there's 16 and 17. Those are a really interesting case study to me for a couple of reasons, mainly to do with the re-release of 16. So 16 is called Deuces Down, and 17 is Death Draws 5. And those go pretty well chronological, or at least they did originally, 16 and 17. But Tor did a rather striking and remarkable remix and remake of Volume 16. So yeah, originally 16 and 17, it made perfect sense to read them in numerical order, but Tor has done a re-release of Volume 16 of Deuces Down that makes it into a very different book. Originally it was an anthology. Well, this is sort of a different topic, isn't it? All right, so that's all I'll say about it for now. I'll do some future videos talking about the actual stories in Volume 10 and Volume 11, but for now, we'll leave it at that.
Give our love back some sparks. He said, we'll get your love growing. But before we get going, may I highly recommend Cod Shocks? I like to go out dancing. My baby loves a bunch of authors. Lately we've had some friction, 'cause my baby's hooked on shared world fiction.